What is going on, you guys? My name is Rage and we are back today with a Dark Dimension 5 overview video. I just recently wrapped up the global notes if you guys have been following my video playthrough, and as well, I always like to make these videos following my progression, but I also just completed and wrapped up the cosmic section of Dark Dimension 5. So now that only leaves the legendary nodes. I always like to make these reflection videos following my completion just because it's still fresh in my memory, and as well the regular progression playthrough videos do take longer to edit, so that's why I make this quicker and release it beforehand, so that way if you guys are following along you can definitely prepare in advance towards your progression in the end game of Dark Dimension 5. That said, these 5 characters that made up my cosmic team, they provided some absolute amazing value for me because they're used in other game modes as well. It only took me 1 attempt or 2 attempts per node to actually get through it, so I highly recommend this team that I'm about to show you. The first 5 characters I've utilized here then is actually the Eternals combination of Cersei and Icarus. I also brought on Star-Lord T'Challa, as well as Kestrel, being one of that top 5 characters in the game. Provide a little bit of buff cleansing, as well as good sustainability in terms of having offense down and managing the waves. Phyla-Vell being part of that fellow Infinity Watch team. Those 5 characters really made a solid dent for me in terms of the nodes. Again, only taking me 1 to 2 attempts each node, and I just found that their synergies were extremely useful. I will have to say as well, the main combination of Cersei and Icarus, as well as Kestrel, you can pretty much slot in any character with them afterwards. They can pretty much make up the entire team if you want, just because of how much value they bring in. I really like Star-Lord T'Challa because well, first of all, he's cosmic, but the fact that he's tech allowed me to save some mystic gear, because you'll find in these cosmic nodes, there's just a lot of characters that you can bring in, but almost all of them will need that mystic gear material. If you're building the Darkhold team, if you're building Infinity Watch, you're going to be utilizing that same mystic gear, and that's the issue there. Having all those powerful characters using the same gear is what's going to really constrain. Dark Dimension 5 is honestly about resource management, so that's why you're going to have to slot in and see which combinations, but one reason I really did enjoy having Star-Lord T'Challa was the fact that he could actually blind his ability here, applying defense down, and as well, if the primary target ended up having blind as well, they could steal ability energy back to him, so that was really good. His Ravager Rocket ultimate was pretty nice as well, copying all positive effects next to him, so when I slotted him next to my Eternals combination of Cersei and Icarus, he was able to just copy all their positive buffs, and it was just nice to see that benefit. He's a good character, just a bit squishier, but I found value with him. And if you guys are interested in war, you know, the Ravagers are definitely one of the best war offense teams now in the game. I also hearted Ravager Stitcher. I didn't bring him up, but I know he's a cheap alternative. You can see he's also tech. He's a very cheap character to bring in, because you're going to need 5 characters up in that cosmic nodes, right? So that's why I would consider him if you guys were just short on that material and you don't have Mystic Gear. He's definitely a really good slot in, and being part of that Ravager team for war, you can definitely find some value there if you plan to bring the rest of the team up. The X factor here that I didn't expect to bring up until I actually was looking for gear management wise was Phyla-Vell. You know, as I mentioned earlier, she's got a cleanse. She's got some really good damage, actually. A top 10 damaging character in the game, surprisingly enough. And fortunately, she is somewhat farmable in the game as well now. So I find her actually in the arena store. So I mean, not the best way, but it can build up over time if you have her, and a lot of folks will likely have her built up because of the Infinity Watch meta, and that's precisely the reason why I didn't need to invest too much on her. She was already built up. Bringing her to tier 16 was the matter here, and as well, you guys can note here for her trait, she's actually bio, so it's nice that she's cosmic bio, so you can utilize some of the bio gear there, because unless you're planning to bring on any other bio characters aside from the city nodes, I found that there was value there, and that way you can save on the future gear, especially if you need characters ready to go for the legendary nodes afterwards. So overall, you guys, those are the 5 characters that made a really meaningful impact for me. But Kestrel, a no-brainer here as well. We don't really need to talk too much about her abilities. She's just a must-bring if you can. She's self-sustaining, good damage. Her passive attacks whenever there's defense down on the enemies make a really meaningful impact, especially with the number of enemies that are prevalent. And as well, Cersei and Icarus, nothing much to say about these two. They're a top 5, top 10 dual combination in the game if you have them. Unfortunately, not farmable, but the fact that they can cleanse a lot, the fact that they can flip positive buffs to your advantage, just absolutely devastating characters if you can bring them up. And unfortunately, both of them do require Mystic gear specifically, right? So if you've been, farming up your Infinity Watch, your Darkhold team for the meta, you'll find you're likely going to be strapped for gear, especially if you brought on Cloak and Dagger for the city nodes. You may potentially be, only able to squeeze in 1 or 2 of them, but, like I said, they're must-haves so you can get your hands on them just because of how much value they have outside of Dark Dimension, but as well as all game modes. That said, those are the 5 that really added amazing value. So let's talk about character combinations maybe that a lot of players won't have access to and that we can utilize, right? I think the Star-Lord T'Challa, Ravager Stitcher is really safe if you guys are just planning on to bring a non-Eternals team, because likely folks may not have Mystic Gear available. It's nice because what I do see right away is that the majority of the Infinity Watch is actually able to be used for this. So you can see Gamora, Phyla-Vell, Nebula, as well as Moondragon. That's 4 out of the 5 members, right? We can't use Adam Warlock because he's a legendary, so he can only be used in the legendary nodes. But if you've invested in Infinity Watch before and they're already pretty much there, that would be a good combination to utilize, just because only 2 are Mystic and Moondragon is skill, whereas Phyla-Vell is bio. So I mean, you can definitely get some value out of there. As you can see, most of my team is actually already tier 15, so it was a pretty no-brainer to bring up Phyla-Vell, but I didn't have enough skills, so that's why I think Moondragon and Phyla-Vell would have been that toss-up in the air for a lot of folks. If you already have Darkhold built up, Doctor Strange Heartless, he could be another option as well, but unfortunately, because he doesn't have his team with him, I don't know if you're going to find a lot of value there. We also have Yondu here being part of that fellow Ravager, but again, because he requires Mystic Gear, there's better characters to utilize, such as the Eternals, right? So I wouldn't recommend. Hela's expensive. She's really dropped off the meta, so I would not recommend her as well. Bishop, I've seen people consider Bishop just because, Astonishing X-Men, like I said before in my earlier videos, they're the only team that can take on the Doom 2 raids, but I feel like they're gonna fall off the meta pretty soon here within the next year at least, right? So you can bring him up, but he's also a pretty heavy investment as well. And again, he's not really self-sustaining, right? So he doesn't really have any of the other members to help him out. So you would just be bringing him up if you already have him naturally built up from the Doom raids. I think another one that to consider is America Chavez, just because Young Avengers is a very solid team. But again, because she requires that Mystic Gear, you're going to be conflicting with some of the better characters in the game. That includes the Eternals. Silver Surfer is also very expensive. He's a very powerful character, and now that he's farmable, you can likely build him up. But the power creep has been pretty unreal for his stats. Specifically, he can definitely use some love again, but it's still sad. He's still a top 10, top 15 character in the game. Otherwise, I would not recommend bringing characters like Proxima Midnight. Deathpool, she's actually a really good character, but I wouldn't recommend again just because she's really expensive. Yes, she's used in all game modes, but just for the Dark Dimension stages where the health pools are scaled so significantly, I just don't think she'd be that great of an option. Unless you already have her built up naturally from raids, you're going to find synergy there. But again, because of that Mystic Gear conflict, there's other character combinations that you can better utilize, especially if you naturally already have Infinity Watch built up, the Eternals, or you're planning to bring up the Ravagers, who, are a good war offense team that you can find value for. Otherwise, guys, I'm just looking top down here. The Asgardians got reworked with Thor, so he's potentially an option now in the future. I just got lucky in the 7 red here for him, but unfortunately, he's still a pretty slow character, and you're not going to find synergies with him unless you bring up Hela, so that way they can get the passive charges. But otherwise, these Asgardians, I wouldn't recommend it for specifically Dark Dimension 5, because you're going to find these enemies do hit hard, and they have a lot of health pools. And as well, you just need the full synergies of a team to really get value, in my honest opinion. Thanos and Minerva, I've previously used them in my previous Dark Dimension stages, but they really have fallen off. Minerva has a good revive. She has a good sustain in terms of her heal, but her energy pool just takes up time to actually recharge, and that could be the shortfall. She's also extremely squishy, so something to consider as well. The gear management wise, she's also mystic and quite expensive as well. So high level, guys, those are the characters I would recommend. I think Infinity Watch is a pretty safe choice with mixtures of maybe some of the meta that includes the Darkhold, right, such as Doctor Strange Heartless. Otherwise, I highly recommend if you can bring on the Ravagers as a cheap alternative, such as Star-Lord T'Challa, Ravager, Stitcher, both of them not being Mystic. Having that combination of Kestrel at least in there to give you some heavy damage, and as well as being cheaper because she uses both skill and tech, you're gonna find some value there. And at that point, I would just take a look at your roster to see some better characters that are given your gear management availability of resources. So there you guys have it. I hope this video was at least able to help you guys gear up and prepare for Dark Dimension 5. Thank you as always, and I'll see you guys in the next one.